What's up, Internet? EDC Gear Guy here. Now, this is a review I've been wanting to do for some time, just because spoiler alert, am in love with these friggin' knives. This is the Cold Steel SRK. There's a million videos on YouTube about this knife, but I feel like a lot of them are lacking a couple key points that maybe we can go over here. And if you're looking at these knives to buy one, I could give you some ups and downs. And let's go over it. So the SRK, the name stands for Survival Rescue Knife. This implies that it's designed as a sort of jack-of-all-trades fixed blade. And I mean, I could say in my experience, that's exactly what it excels at. Meaning it's not the best at any one thing, yet it's good at pretty much everything. To be honest, I'll say right off the bat that the SRK is probably the best value, dollar for dollar, of any multi-use fixed blade knife in existence, in my humble opinion. And I'm a humble guy. You see, okay, 3 of them here. We have the SK5 steel and the 3V steel. So, yes, and the truth is I do have one in the San Mai version as well, but it's packed away in one of my most inaccessible bug-out bags, and I confess that I'm just too damn lazy to go through the torture of digging it out of the center of that very well-organized and tightly packed bag. This knife comes in 2 sizes, regular and compact, as you can see. Both serve basically the same purpose and come in the same steels. So you can get this. The San Mai version is a VG10 version, and you can get both sizes in VG10, SK5, and 3V steel. Now the San Mai version is exactly this. It's the exact same design as the others, just made with a very well heat-treated VG10 core, and that's clad with some kind of very stainless steel for support, I suppose. I'm not sure what, but my San Mai SRK has been through total hell. I really apologize for not bringing it out, because you got to see this thing to believe it. I broke the tip prying on some oak firewood, and the spine is covered with an actual Eastwig hammer finish from me using it to cut, or I guess I should say chop/baton, through a frozen oxtail in preparation for a Jamaican Christmas dinner a couple years ago. I used a bench grinder to reprofile the tip from the previous broken clip point tip to a very ugly looking drop point. But that San Mai SRK I have is now sporting an almost indestructible tip because of that from now on. On top of all that abuse, it's been through a number of very brutal winter camping trips, and I could say without a doubt that the VG10 San Mai version is almost indestructible. Almost. For those of you who don't know, in 2019, the founder of Cold Steel, Lynn Thompson, sold the company to GSM Outdoors, which is a huge company who, for the most part, has kept the product line going at the same levels as before. And my San Mai version is from before the selling of Cold Steel to GSM. So while I assume the new ones are probably just as good, I can't say 100% from my experience. But I would buy with confidence. I mean, anyway, the SRK comes in 2 sizes. Like I said, it's made with a diversity of steels. Obviously, as you know, VG10 San Mai, which will run you about $110 to $130. It comes in a Cold Steel's Cold Steel specifically, amazingly heat-treated 3V Super Steel, which runs in an average about $150. That's this one here. Well, let's get these. You're going to want to see the goods. You're going to see the knife porn, right? So that's a 3V. As you can see, it's been used for a multitude of things. It runs about $150, but can sometimes be found on sale for around the same price as the San Mai version, which I did get this one on sale. This is a special edition made in Coyote Brown for, was it? Oh God, who was it? I guess it was Midway USA. In the case of Cold Steel and their 3V, it has a pretty good hardness rating of 60 to 61 HRC, which will provide a damn good bit of edge retention. 3V, however, does tarnish pretty easily and does not have the corrosion resistance of your typical modern stainless steels. The standard version of the SRK, which is this one here, is made with a very well-coated SK5 steel. I mean, it almost looks like rhino liner, the stuff you put on your truck beds. SK5 steel is the Japanese equivalent to American 185 carbon steel. It has the same basic properties, like, little to no corrosion resistance, hence the thick coating, an HRC hardness rating of about 58 to 59, which is perfectly adequate, and it has great toughness. The SK5 version of this knife can be had pretty much anywhere online for around 40 bucks, 45 if you feel like paying extra money somewhere. This price is absolutely insane for what you are getting. I will partially spoil the end of the video by saying get one. The SRKC, the compact version, is even cheaper, somewhere around like $30 to $35. Also a no-brainer. Both of these knives are, I mean, it's unbelievable what you get. Like I always say, other companies would charge a lot more for this same knife. Now, I do have some notes. I usually don't do notes. I just kind of run at the mouth at videos as I hear people complain about. So let's go over the specs, because there's two knives. I want to make sure I didn't F that up. So the blade length on this guy is 6 inches. Blade thickness is 5 millimeters. It's 4.8, but that's close enough. Yes, that is a chunky blade stock, which I like for a blade that's, meant to be put to work like this one. These, just so you know, these measurements and everything are exactly the same of these two. The only difference is the steel type. So the spine is 90 degrees, giving the uncoated versions like this one great spark throwing ability. I guess you could sand or file off a spot on the SK5 version if you really want that. Or maybe if you just do it enough, it'll happen. It'll come off on its own. The overall length is 10.75 inches. Steels are, of course, VG10 San Mai, SK5, CPM 3V, high carbon steel, and with satin and or coated blades. The weight on these full-size versions, 8.8 ounces. I think it varies a little bit by like 1/10 of an ounce, but basically the same. Handle version on these two is 4 3/4 inches of Crayex, which is that really grippy, rubbery type material that tends to stand the test of time, unlike other companies' rubbery, grippy type material. Meaning you can have like Crayex, an old Tonto from like the 80s, and it's not like gummy and turning and disintegrating like other rubbery handles do. So I don't know what they do to this stuff, but it's awesome stuff. And it provides an absolutely fantastic grip. The sheets that these come with are the classic Cold Steel Secure X sheets, which is a glass reinforced nylon. The Cold Steel Secure X sheets are a point of contention for many. Why? Because the glass and material is hard. It's harder than the steel anyway, used for the blades, which means when you're putting this thing in and out, if the edge rubs on the material inside the sheath, which it will, it can and will dull your blade. This is why I spent the 40 bucks for a Kydex sheath, which I do use if I'm heading out in the wilderness. But if you're careful and you sheath your blades in a certain way, it'll really drastically reduce that dulling effect. I mean, basically, you push on the spine of the blade as you're putting this in, and when you bring it out, you drag it on the spine of the blade and not just shove it in nilly-willy, or willy-nilly, I guess. And I don't really have too much of an issue. You just got to pay attention, that's all. These are all made in Taiwan. And for those that don't know, Taiwan might be the greatest knife-making company out there, with the exception of Poland. Taiwan is not China. It is a first world nation. Actually, a little bit more advanced than the United States. The IQ is about 6 points higher, at least, than the United States per person. And they make the world's greatest tech, and in my opinion, the best production knives for the price. So the compact version dimensions here: blade length 5 inches, handle length 4.5. for an overall length of 9.5 inches. The blade thickness is a bit thinner than the full-size one at 4 millimeters instead of 5 millimeters. The handle of the compact SRK is not just shorter, but it's all around smaller, as you can see. I mean, it's thinner and smaller. So it would make a great choice for smaller hands, women, children, manlets, things like that. Now, the ergos of these knives are overall pretty good. I don't have special, I mean, you don't get your special notches or thumb rests or any jimping or shit like that for fine detail work. But, I mean, if you're determined enough, you can get by on those tasks with what you got here. You do have a rubbery and not very solid finger guard. You can see it's like you can squish it, which I like. And it'll probably save you from crippling yourself for life when you're abusing the shit out of your SRK. It feels equally good in both standard grip and also reverse grip. Really just overall really good comfort on these knives. I do have another SRK as well in this steel. And that one's actually a trunk knife currently. So I didn't want to bring that one out, but it's got some wear and tear. This coating that they put on these blades, it takes a lot to come off. It's pretty tough. It gets scuffed easy, but it doesn't remove easy. But yeah, I do have another SRK, and so I have used the SK5 version pretty extensively as well, and it's an emergency knife. So what about, let's say, the real life applications of these knives, the RLA? It's a pretty long list compared to most medium-sized fixed blades. And yes, to me, this is what I would call a medium-sized fixed blade. The compact is on the smaller side of medium, but still, in my mind, is a medium fixed blade. Anything between 4 to 8 inches, I would consider a medium-sized in the EDC Gear Guide book of knife rules. So yes, despite what your woman tells you, 4 to 8 inches is medium. Sorry about your luck. Anyways, real life applications, RLAs. Let's get the obvious ones out of the way. Survival and or rescue knife. Well, I'm not a search and rescue expert or anything, but I would imagine this would do very well for such a thing due to its extremely well-rounded features. Now, survival, yeah, I would probably grab the 3V version as my go-to survival knife. Are there better options out there? Of course, but for the price and with these materials and the fact that I have a lot of experience with this design, it's my go-to survival knife. I actually take, every time I go camping, I take one of these knives with me, an SRK. How about work knife? How about yes? Yeah, I mean, this is a tough knife, good steel, tough steel, good ergos, well-rounded. I mean, all the same reasons that it makes a good survival rescue knife. I would say this would make a good work knife. You work out in the woods, you know, as a logger, it's a good knife to have. Let's say you work on a pipeline out in the middle of nowhere. This would be a good choice. Good fixed blade for you, I would say, for sure. How about an EDC knife? Well, I mean, you're not going to believe this, but how about yes again? In fact, I have carried both sizes of this knife for daily use. And the compact version is is extremely comfortable and just right for like any basic EDC task for me. It's a little thick for slicing, like apples and things like that, but it works great for splitting apples like a log splitter. But I would say, you know, yeah, EDC, the SRKC would be a good choice. Even the bigger one, if you don't know the best way to carry a fixed blade for EDC, where you don't want to just dangle it out for the world to see, you put it on your belt and you stick this part down in your front side pocket, and you put it on the belt right above that pocket, and it holds it in place and it keeps it from, you know, it's pretty much, as long as your shirt's not tucked in, it's as non-visible or possibly even more non-visible than a folding knife because there's no clip or anything. So yeah, so food prep, yeah. I mean, obviously you're not going to be getting super fine tomato slices real easy, but at the right angle, it is possible. I've done it. I know from experience. So it definitely can fill in as a kitchen knife if needed, but I wouldn't say that it's a great design for that. Next, RLA, self-defense. Hell yes. In fact, there is a rumor out there supported with multiple pictures on the interwebs that the U.S. Navy SEALs are issued the SRK for training purposes, and possibly some even go to war with their SRKs, some go-to-war scenarios. Being that I'm not a trained knife fighter or anything, I personally prefer a much larger blade. If I'm going to carry for self-defense, I'm going to carry something real big to improve my odds through reach. But I certainly wouldn't feel helpless with one of these bad boys in my grip, putting in some bad guy stopping knife work. I mean, yeah, they come, the edge comes incredibly sharp, like not all, but almost all. I mean, yeah, all cold steel knives, with the exception of occasionally their machetes will come dull, but they're not really dull. It's just that the burr is bent over to one side. If you straighten the burr out on those machetes, and strop it off, they're crazy sharp as the knives. How about, okay, let's get back to real life applications. How about classic bushcraft work? Not going to be my first choice, or even my second choice, but I've done it in a pinch, and it's certainly possible. I mean, when camping, I always keep a classic Mora knife as well as one of these in my pack. Well, I keep one of these on my belt, but I usually keep a Mora knife in my pack for those bushcraft kind of things. If it comes to that, I'm not a big bushcrafter. I tend to bring like a lighter or matches, and I tend to bring I tend not to need to do too much bushcraft. I like technology, but bushcrafting is cool, and it's a skill I wish I was better at. I'm not gonna lie. So, I mean, I said like work knife, but what about like a regular old work knife? Like if you're like a construction worker or something like that, or a landscaper, then yeah, this would also make a decent knife as a backup to your machete for a number of reasons. One being its $40 price point of this guy here. And of course, it's virtual indestructibility. And I'm obviously, like I said, talking about the SK5 version. But hey, the pricier versions, they'd work just as well if you're willing to spend the money on it. So one of the things that's near and dear to my heart that I think about every time I buy a fixed blade knife, how about SHTF grid down / zombie apocalypse knife? Yes. In fact, if you're one of those guys or gals that for some weird reason hate carrying huge knives, this would be perfect. A perfect, well-rounded companion, while traversing the end of days wasteland. And of course, it would be just fine as a backup for that same situation for guys like me who would be carrying a giant buoy or something like that, or a sword or a short sword. So yes, yes to this being an SHTF knife. Highly recommended for such things. Another highly recommended use for this knife, especially these versions here, the cheaper versions, is a car / truck / glove box / trunk knife. I'd say the SK5 models they're absolutely perfect for such a thing. This way you have a capable knife on hand in whatever emergency situation you might need it for. Or if you just need to put it to work on something nasty that you don't want to jack up a nice expensive knife that you have with you. Because let's be honest, if you're reaching for a fixed blade glove compartment or trunk knife, it's going to likely be for something unpleasant. You're probably not in a good place, and you probably need a knife in a pinch for an emergency. Maybe you don't, but there's a good chance of that. So yeah, good to have a knife that, but conversely, the fact that it's a glove box knife means that it's hardly gonna get used, so it'll stay sharp. So you're not out of a small fortune by leaving some expensive knife sitting there unattended 99% of the time. Yeah, you don't want to put your expensive fox knife or any $200-300 fixed blade sitting in a glove box that gets used once every few years. I wouldn't anyway. I mean, I can't really afford to do that. This is a great option for that. I mean, great, wonderful option, and I actually do such a thing. My vehicle, not my wife's, has an SRK in, well, I have an SUV, so it's not in the trunk, but it's in like the, you know, they have like a little like storage area in the back. And there is an SRK pulling emergency duty in that vehicle. And I'm sure I could just go on and on and on with, you know, viable options for this knife, but you get the idea. You know, it's pretty much a capable everything in a pinch knife. I mean, that's what it's designed for. Search and rescue is one of those things where you could be cutting rope, you could be chopping branches, you could be opening up a snake bite, you could be, you know, stabbing coyotes that are attacking somebody or attack. You just don't know. So it really is designed for all that. Now, I'm going to recommend that you, it's funny because this, one of these, I got this on eBay, and the guy makes a really nice Kydex sheaths for these knives, but they cost about as much as this SRK does. But it's depending on which knife I take with me. If I'm heading out and I know I'm going to be using the knife and pulling it in and out of the sheath, you know, this will fit either one of these large sizes. I'm going to get one, I guess, for the compact. It's just really, I just got the compact to get it. There was like a sale. It was like $27 or something. I had to get it. I'm going to do not buy it for $27. Friggin' ridiculous. You'd be an idiot not to buy this for $27. But the Kydex sheath for it to replace this costs more than that. But I mean, honestly, it's worth it. I do have a couple generic leather sheaths that fit it. I should have brought them out. I apologize. So yeah, you know, I would, you know, so would I buy it if I were you? Yes. In fact, I would buy multiple, which I have done. I own 5 SRKs. It's a good knife. It gives you real options in terms of usage and variety of steels. There's a reason Cold Steel has continued to produce and sell this knife for the better part of 3 decades, because it friggin' works, and it's awesome. It's very comfortable, useful in many departments, easy to sharpen, by the way. I didn't mention that yet. Real easy to sharpen. I mean, I use a ceramic rod and a strop, and this thing is, all 3 of these are crazy, crazy sharp. It doesn't break the bank. Even the more expensive models, you know, are not all that expensive considering what you're getting. I mean, I got this one on sale for like $100. $100 for a SRK and 3V? I mean, that's crazy, you know, and I'm going to say it again, and I say it again and again and again in every video about pretty much every Cold Steel knife. What would other brands cost for these exact same knives and the exact same materials with the same coatings, everything? The answer is twice as much as Cold Steel charges or costs. So, you know, 2 thumbs up from me for the SRK in all of its sizes and steels. Just what a great knife. They do, you know what, hold on, let me go grab them. They do, however, make a folding version of the SRK. Let's see, there's not much room on this little table here, so let me get some of this shit out the way. And they make them, this is the SR1, Survival Rescue 1. And it is so smooth. I mean, the action on these, if you like, well, I tried to do just thumb on that one, it got stuck. The tiniest bit of wrist flick, and these puppies just go zinging out. Okay, let's get them in view here. So there is, just going to show them to you. I'm not doing a review on these right now. That's actually going to be a separate review that I do plan on doing. Probably next, to be honest. Probably as my next knife review. But they make a companion for this, and you can see, I mean, you can see the similarities. This blade shape here is pretty much identical, just shorter. I guess the compact is even more like it. But they don't make the SRK in a Tonto, but they make the Recon Tonto, which is another fixed blade, which costs a little bit more, but it's pretty much about the same. Same materials, same everything. It's just a Tonto like this or this. But you can buy these too. If you're folding, if you want a knife that pretty much does all the same things, but it's a folding knife and is like ridiculously smooth and like super off the hook, ridiculously overbuilt. I mean, these things, look how thick the blade is on these things. I mean, I think it's the same thickness. It is. These folders are 4.8 mils, and there's a super thick G10 handles on these things. These SR1s folders are pretty expensive in terms of, as far as cold steel goes. They're like, I mean, generally they're running like $135 for each one of these, and that's on like Amazon. Sometimes they go down. You'll catch them on a good deal. I paid $129 for this one, $118 this one on sale. Be careful buying this on Amazon. I had to return 2 of them because what they did is they sent me returns. I was like, wow, it's cheap. It was like $109. I bought one of these, and it was somebody's return. It was all jacked up. The box was like retaped and all that shit. I don't recommend buying these on Amazon. I really don't. For some reason, I had a bad experience with both of these. I had to return both of the Amazon ones I ordered, and then I just ordered them from like a reputable company. I just said, F this. But you can get these. These are S35VN with really thick G10, really thick S35VN. So it's good materials. There's no wonder they're so expensive. You can see that these are clipped from my left pocket. These are going to be used as EDC knives if I ever pull them out. It's kind of a ridiculous EDC knife because it's so thick, but it's really good actually. I brought it to the steakhouse, this one, and I had such a good time using it, cutting steaks and food, and you can pry. Look how thick these are. You can pry open like paint cans, and look at that. It's just crazy thick for a folding knife. Ridiculous. But they make these cheap brands, same thickness, same dimensions, same everything, except the steel is 8CR and the scales are Grivex, which is a more or less the same thing that these are made of, glass-filled nylon, which is super tough stuff. And you can see this one has a pocket deployment device on it, a Snaggletooth MF, and that's because this is my cheap go-to self-defense knife. If I'm going to go to, like, I don't know, where did I go where I really needed a self-defense knife? Oh, New Orleans. This would have been perfect. I bought this after I went to New Orleans. So I was like, man, I should have had something. I had to go to, like, Walmart and buy some piece of shit to have a knife to carry because I didn't bring one with me. This is what I've got that for. Or if I'm, like, doing construction work and I want to carry something nice. I do construction work fairly often. And then, of course, you can get it in the clip-on. These are like $30 to $35. So, yeah, if you can't afford $100+ for these, I don't care how poor you are, you need to buy these. Both of them. You want both kinds. Amazing. So, anyway, these are the folding version. The point of this whole going into the weeds on the folding version is that this SRK, which came out first, this fixed blade, is such a success for cold steel that they had to make a folding version of it, which is also a runaway success. These SR1 lights are just a crazy runaway success from what I understand. But yeah, SRK, amazing knives, amazing for the money. Even the expensive ones are a huge value for what you're getting. Buy every one that you can. If you can afford the expensive ones, buy them too. Definitely at least buy one of each of these cheapies. I recommend buying multiple of these so you can keep them in the car. You can keep them in bug out bags. I mean, there's so much use that these knives can, so many roles these things can fill. Like I said, even EDC. So yeah, SRK, get you one. Get you 5. I appreciate you guys watching. Obviously, I'm a big fan of cold steel. I got more cold steels coming. This has been EDC Gear Guy, signing out. And we'll catch you next time.